Okay guys, so more on making electronic dance music for complete beginners. Now, William Orbit said something very interesting in an interview I read with him back in the late 90s. He was talking about how he approaches making electronic music, and he said that within a genre there are recognizable icons. I believe that's the phrase he used, recognizable icons. And those are things that are familiar to the listener. So you put those recognizable icons in, but then around that you should be creative. Do your own thing. And you'll find that there will usually be some subgenre of the overall umbrella genre that your music fits into, providing that you have those recognizable icons in there. Now, to show you this, I'm going to go again with house music because it's the founding genre of all electronic dance music along with techno, and it has a lot of subgenres. So we're just going to listen to some clips taken from an online dance music portal. These are all current tracks that are out, and you'll hear there's so many different types of house, different ways that house can sound, but they all have the recognizable icon of the 4 on the floor kick with usually the rising 8th hat splash sound in between, right? Regardless of whether it has swing, regardless of what other sub percussion and other drum patterns are going on within that overall pounding 4 on the floor, that's the recognizable icon of house music. But as you'll hear as we play through these clips, there are so many different ways that house music can sound. So the idea of this video is to just show you, get those recognizable icons in for the overall master genre that you're interested in trying to make, and then be creative. Always be creative. Do your own thing, but you will find that your music will fit in somewhere most of the time, right? Okay, so straight house, not tech house, not electro house or whatever, not progressive house, but what's classified as straight house. How can you define it? Well, it's got the with or without the swing and whatever other cross rhythms go along with it. But the main feature of it is that it's groovy, it's soulful, and it has nothing big and strident in the mid-range. There's no big synthesizer work going on or anything like that, okay? Synths tend to be restricted to rhythmic, sparse movements and patterns. And there's nothing sharp and harsh and strident and upfront in mid-range. And all these are at 125 beats per minute, which is pretty much your standard house tempo. Yeah, sometimes you might have a track at 124 or 126, but generally at 125. So here's a little clip. Yeah, it's mellow, it's groovy, it's soulful, and there's nothing strident going on in the mid-range. It's just that repeating sample loop and the beat and the bass. Yeah, here's another one here. Soulful, groovy, mellow. There's a very soft piano in there, but it's EQ'd very soft, rounded, right? Here's another one. Okay, now this has got a very Latin influence, a lot of Latin stuff going on in the percussion, and that repeating lick thing there's a Latin feel to it somehow. So it's a little bit more harder, this one, than the previous one, but it's soulful, it's groovy, and there's nothing, massively strident going. There's no huge synthesizer work, busy stuff going on in the mid-range at all, just that repeating lick. And a really groovy bass line, It's got the swing, like that, yeah. Here's another one. Yeah, straight beat, yeah, and it's got the skip to it, the swing. Yeah, and there's that little Latin piano lick in there. Yeah, here's another one, Latin-y. It's got that walking down bass line. It's got a skip groove in it, a swing groove in it, and the piano, the very mellow mid-range Latin piano. It's like reminiscent of the old 70s, Gibson Brothers and other Latin-influenced disco music. Yeah, mellow, groovy, soulful. Nothing strident in the mid-range at all. Yeah, there's a square wave bass, mallety like layer on top of it. Yeah, little sample loop going, triggering behind it. Yeah, swing to the hats. Yeah, but mellow in the mid-range, groovy and funky, and well, not funky, but groovy and soulful, and it's, you know, it's mellow, right? Here's another one. Again, very soulful, very mellow. Another one. Same again, soulful, mellow, groovy, right? And it's got the very 70s disco influence in the strings and the little guitar lick and what have you. And there's a tambourine working away, do 16ths for the swing there. Yeah, there's another one here. Okay, this is sort of like a tighter groove. It's got that really deep bass end. There's a little lick, like a little keyboard. It's just a stabby lick, right? There's no big synth work in house. Just synths are restricted to doing rhythmic stab patterns that might have just a couple of licks in across the whole bar, or even just one lick or whatever, you know. But it's mellow, groovy, soulful, and it's got an openness again. Yeah. There's a little thing here. Yeah, soulful and groovy. There's that Manu Dibango-like horn sound. There's another one here. Now this has got a riser going across it, I think. So is that climbing riser? But listen, there's nothing strident in the mid-range again. It's got that bum-titty beat. Bum titty bum titty bum, as it's commonly known in the trade, bum titty. And that really groovy sort of TK disco bass line. And there's a skip in that bass line, there's a swing in it. And there's that little skip in the bass line. Mellow, groovy, soulful. And there's nothing going on strident, nothing busy in the mid-range at all, as usual. Yeah, what's this one here we got? Yeah, very, again, spacious, mellow, soulful, groovy. There's a little horn sounding lick going on there, very subtle, it's very EQ'd subtle. Yeah. Again, a soft, rounded, mellow bass line, really groovy. Yeah. Again, nothing strident in the mid-range. There's no. Notice all of these. There's no busy synth work at all anywhere. Yeah, again, groovy, mellow, soulful, and finally, a lot of Latin sound going on in this one. It's got that instrument, I don't know what it's called. It's like a metal tube with a piece of damp leather, and you slide it in and out, and it goes woo, 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 like that. Lots of blocks and cowbell type percussion in the upper ends. There's a lot of Latin feel to this. Yeah. Yeah. It's, again, mellow, soulful, groovy. But the theme with the overall theme with all of these sort of straight house tracks is that the mid-range is sparse and mellow. There's nothing busy going on. There's no heavy synth work or anything like that. Synths, keyboards, other things like that play tend to be restricted to doing little licks that complement the rhythm. Okay, now I'm getting to deep house, and you know, some of this will cross over with just house, right? But deep house is supposed to be stripped back and more focused on the deepness of the house, man. It's like, oh, that's deep house, you know, it's really deep. It's focusing on the groove, you know. Yeah, it's got a kind of techno-y edge to it, that one. Big open square wave bass in that. Right. And this is like soulful, deep house with the mellow vocal. But again, this is deep house, right? That's somewhat crossover. The focus on the groove, the bottom end. It can be soulful with a vocal, it can be more techno-edged, very subtly so. But again, like with just straight house, there's nothing busy in the mid-range. There's no synthesizer work going on. Other instruments in the mid-range beyond and above the bass are restricted to doing rhythmic stuff. Again, spacious, more deep and spacious, right? With that sort of soft mallet type organy sound. Now, this is a bit of an odd one. But again, it's sparse, spacious, deep, right? 303 bass line in this one. A lot of old school vibe to this. Deep. A little piano lick there, electric piano lick. What's this one here? Okay, it's got this repeating thing, but you'll notice there's a very sort of slow progressing chord thing going on, which takes its time, to step through the chord sequence. Yeah, and there's a little chord change here. Da, da. Yeah, lots of space and time for it to do that progression. It's deep, it's groovy. Again, nothing in the mids dominating at all. Open in the mids, right? Yeah, deep, groovy. Yeah. This is quite old, sort of that late 80s, housey, ravey type edge, almost crossing over. Yeah. Nice, solid, thudding, chugging things, deep, mellow. But again, like with those were supposed to be like deep house, right? As classified by the website selling the music. There's just a lot of crossover with house, right? But again, they both have the one thing in common. There's nothing going on, as I keep saying, in the mid-range. Nothing busy in the mid-range. But then we get to electro house, right? And it all changes. Now we've got strident synthesizer work in the mids. It's got a hardness to it. This almost like sort of art and noise, gated reverb type thing that we got back in the day. It's still got no swing to this that I can hear. Oh yeah, there's a little bit in there, but strident synthesizer work, right? A Hoovery type thing. Real bounce to that, right? But again, now with this electro house, we're getting a lot of strident mid-range synthesizer work as a feature. Yeah. There's a bit of a glitch to it, and a lot of it. Yeah. And in some of these, you might be hearing that the synthesizer patterns are coming from taking one of the patterns in the drum section and having it trigger a synth. Right, and this one, the beat, the rhythm of the beat is being used to trigger the synth. Okay, so electro house, it's trying to put electro sounds, which are quite strident, over house, but it's kind of slightly more modern sounding, right? Whereas these tracks here, tech house, They again feature mid-range synthesizer work, but it's an older synthesizer sound, like 80s polysynth sounds are used most of the time. So it's got a techno edge, and the beats will stray away often from the straight and you get the introduction of techno patterns in there, working with the house beat, you know. Although, see, this one to me, it's more just straight house or deep house. Yeah, but synthesizer work. There's the pad string, there's the marimba mallet thing over the top, but all very 80s polysynth sounds. Not like the previous electro house, more strident stuff. Yeah. Oh, that's Born Slippy Underworld, some sort of remix of it. Again, classic old polysynth arpeggiation in there. And more techno-y edged beat, right? Yeah, again, the classic polysynth sound dominating. And a more techno-edged beat. Still got the 4 on the floor, but there's a more techno-edge to it. It's not just, you know. Now it's got a more housey beat, but there is that polysynth working away there across the mid-range. But to me, that could cross over to another subgenre. Well, this one again, it's just repeating a sample lick, which was a kind of thing, I suppose, in techno days. And what's this one? Yeah, again, this is crossing over for me into another subgenre. It's not that techno-y, but the pattern with the rim, with that sort of mallet-like part of percussion working with the drums, gives it some techno edge, I suppose. But more housey in the beat though. Okay, so that's like techno. Or tech house as it's called. It's different to tech house I've heard going back, but it's about polysynth stuff, with techno edges being brought into the patterns, whereas the electro house is more strident and up front, right? And then future house, it gets really glitchy now. This is the stuff that's sort of almost like a crossover between contemporary dance pop. There's big strident, a lot of glitch going on, big. The synthesized work is very modern sounding and really dominates. And a lot of, as you can hear, a lot of glitch going on, and a lot of auto-tune vocal stuff as well. There's another one here. A lot of use of a almost reverse type envelope, like it's sounding like it's some of the patterns might be sampled in reversed loops. Again, lots of glitch going on in that synth. Yeah, there's another one here. Yeah. Again, lots of glitch. Lots of glitch. This one I know. I've heard some of these you might recognise the riffs in them. There's a couple in that I've heard going back, I'm sure. Well, I'm not an expert on this genre, right? Okay, so Future House, sort of the synths again dominating with the tech house, the Electro House and the Future House has since really dominated in the mid-range. And this is quite glitchy, as you can hear, right? And as I said, it's, you know, futuristic, supposed to be futuristic, right? So there's a lot of crossover with contemporary pop in the vocal, a lot of auto-tune vocal and stuff. Okay, now progressive house, and the tempo really slows down. Now, by the way, some of these other ones that I've just played, they might be slightly slower in tempo, but we get down to progressive house and the tempo really slows down. Goes down to about 1 2 3, 1 2 2. It's much slower. Or a couple of beats slower. That should be about right. No, 123 is that? Yeah. Yeah. And progressive house, well, basically it's slower trance with the more house beat. That's all it is, man. If you listen to it, there are every classic old school trance thing is going on in these tracks, really. You know, saranga, whatever that string instrument's called. There's lots of, you know, instruments and Eastern ethnic vocal licks, and often the tracks will have titles that sound like trance track titles, you know. So basically, progressive house is house trance, but way slower than trance. You know, it's quite mellow and it's slower, and it's, you know, you put it on in the background when you know, front loading before going out. Put it on when you come back. It just sits nicely in the background. Doesn't mean you can't have it up front and dance to it, but it's good background music, you know. Because, you know, like with other mellow trance music, it doesn't bark and jump up and down demanding your attention, you know. It's yeah. I mean, that's all the sounds and licks going on in there are classic trance stuff. It's got that chug sometimes, you know, there's an edge of that chug, that trance chug, you know. Yeah. Yeah, there's your kind of ethnic Middle Eastern violin thing, and all that, you know. Little arpeggiation that echoes away. Yeah, it's just, there's tablas in this. So that's it. Progressive house is basically house trance, slower, 123, 122, even down as low as 121. Then finally, funky jackin house. It's just more focused on the upbeat, so you really want to bring that chest forwards and jack your body, because that long, strong upbeat, you know, funky and jackin. Real strong rising up, so you just flex your body. You really want to pump to this, all right? Again, some of this will cross over. That's an old Boney M thing, isn't it? Redone. Yeah, strong upbeat, right? Jack. Oh, I don't know how that got in. That's what, like an Egyptian. This, I know this. No. I don't know where from, but I recognise it. strong upbeat again. It's all in the upbeat. Yeah. Okay, so there you go. Just using one umbrella overall genre house, there's all these different vibes to it. So if you have a basic, start with a pounding 4 on the floor and build around that, it's your choice to go with a more techno edge or a more modern edge or a more deep edge, or you can be as 70s rooted and funky and groovy, or as modern rooted, you push it in the other direction. It's up to you. The point is, work around the recognisable icons of that pounding beat, and usually the rising eighth, and whatever you do around that, there's going to be some subgenre that your stuff will fit into. So don't be worried about be creative. And just to show you that, I just quickly knocked up a thing here. This took me about 15 minutes, and most of that was looking through the loops. And I've used a couple of Apple loops in this. So I've got this one, but it's got an EQ on it. So I'm EQing down the bottom end and really accenting the mids here to bring out all the percussion and the real splashy hat. This is this loop here with the bottom end back in. It's that, but that's how I've got it with the EQ. And then I'm using a 707 drum box, because like early house, it's not 909. It's not all. Don't think all house is like 909, 909. No. The 707 big machine and the 727 synced to it, the Latin percussion one. You'll hear those a lot. So this is a 707 kick doing the 4 on the floor, and there's two different claps. There's this clap here, which almost sounds like it's going fading in, and then a ta-ta-ta here on a different clap. Yeah, and there's the kick, boom, boom, boom. So I'm using a 707 in that, and then there's this quite techie bass. Right. It's got the swing here. On that note there, the 4th 16th in this quarter beat and the 2nd 16th in this quarter beat, and these two, they're on the quarter and eighth, the quarter and the eighth in the middle of that. Right. So there's a sort of quite hard like that, and then I've got a little organ lick. That's it, just one organ lick, and there's another loop from the Apple loops here. And I'm EQing that again, EQing the bottom end out and really accenting the mids there, right? And that's it. Oh, and then I've got a thicker, deeper kick here, if I want to bring that to reinforce the bottom end underneath the 707 kick. And there's also the string part, but I'll leave it out for the minute. So it sounds like this basically. Quite retro sounding, right? And I've got this little string thing. Yeah, one thing you can do in house, or any music for that matter, but house particularly, because it has these sparse little licks that will happen in the middle of a pattern, one or two just little stabby licks. And there it is. There's the one lick, right? So you get it in the piano edit like this, and then you bring in this top bar with the nudge palette here. Set it to division. It'll nudge by a division. So it'll move this with the swing on it. It'll move it back a division or forward a division as I boot it in any direction. Now this little offbeat lick is only going to work on the 4th 16th or the 2nd 16th in any quarter beat. So it's on the 4th 16th in the 2nd beat of the bar here now, right? But I can boot it around. I could boot it forward and have it on the 2nd 16th of the 2nd beat. Different groove, right? Or on the 4th 16th of the 1st beat. Or the 2nd 16th of the 1st beat. Yeah? Or knock it back. 2nd 16th in the 3rd beat. Same as the bass. 4th 16th in the 3rd beat. second 16th in the last beat, or the fourth 16th in the last beat. And you just boot it around and say to yourself, well, I like it there. That's on the same note as the bass is falling on. Or I could have it on the fourth there. Like that. That's how I like it. Okay, so, you know, you just knock something up and it'll fall into some vibe of house, right? If you have the recognisable icon of that, you know, a house beat underpinning it. This I knocked up very quickly. It's got a really old school vibe to it. A lot of it is the 707, but it's not just that. It's the way it's just put together. It's old school sounding, right? I suppose you're bringing this cruddy string synth here. It's a bit weak, but anyway, so you can knock anything up, right? And be creative is the point of this video. Be creative, yeah, and make sure you just get those basic recognisable icons in, and whatever the overall umbrella genre is that you're working on, and then be creative, because that will give your stuff something else that's just different, specific to you, right? So don't be afraid, be creative, but just be aware that they're like in heavy rock. You know, if you're doing heavy rock, you have to have a humbucking guitar powering away through an overdriven Marshall sounding amp. That's the recognisable icon of hard rock or heavy rock. Without it, it isn't that. Right, so your beat, your pounding beat is in house as an umbrella genre is your thing. It can have techno edges put into it in terms of little little cross patterns that are going on in there. It can be more robotic, more techno-y edged and less skippy and groovy. But it's all, as long as it's got the pounding downbeat, it's house, right? And then you just say, make it more mellow or more strident and modern, whatever you like. Just do your thing, yeah. Okay. I hope that's useful.